Some people wonder, because I own 4 websites that are related to psychic and tarot related stuff, readings, do I read also? And I actually used to read, but I no longer do. It wasn't very long that I tried that because I found that I'm not really of the correct temperament to be a reader. My background before having my spiritual awakening was in counseling. I worked as a therapist, and I think that in that realm it's a little bit more expected to take the take the conversation in directions that the client wouldn't necessarily go in themselves, in counseling that is. In other words, they come in, they know they're anxious, they know they're depressed, and they're looking at you as a professional who can help them feel better. But when you're talking to 90 to 95% of the clients who call in for readings, they know specifically what they want to know, and they're not particularly interested in the direction that you want to take the conversation. And that doesn't fit my temperament too well, because I feel that a lot of times what people might think is the issue, such as when will my soulmate come into my life, that's not necessarily what is most pressing. I've utilized psychics multiple times, and in recent years, since I've become more interested in living in the present, I don't ask about the future. I don't ask about future events, what's going to happen, but I like to utilize an intuitive person's ability to help me clarify what is going on in the moment if there's something that I cannot figure out on my own. So that's how I utilize that. But for a lot of people, when I was doing it, they would want to know in particular situations that were about love making them happy. And in my experience as a healer, I believe that most people are experiencing a kind of like love addiction or romance addiction or whatever like that, and it's very, very enabled by the world. That the world thinks that's normal to be dependent. So if I want to take the conversation in a direction of looking at that kind of dynamic, then that's not necessarily going to be met with a lot of receptivity by the client. So I would get bad feedback if I'm on a site that has feedback, which most do. And also I feel that a lot of times, and this is also influenced by my study of psychology and so forth, I think that people really need to deal with their family of origin issues that they've learned to enable their families in order to be loved, and they reenact that dynamic in their relationships, friendships and romantic relationships. And so a lot of times what I think keeps people in a kind of childlike mode of not being able to love themselves and so forth is that they haven't really dealt with their core issues that they developed while growing up and adapting to families, because most families are dysfunctional in one way or another, not necessarily abusive outright, but a lot of times, I'd say the majority of times, people have children before they know who they are, and so they kind of pass their issues along, and that's stuff that needs to be cleared up. So my approach to the healing process doesn't work well with most people. I think that readers who are good at what they do are patient, and they will build up a connection and trust with their client and then take them deeper if that person becomes a returning client or regular client. But I like to kind of go right to the core right away, which tends to frustrate people. So that's why I don't do it anymore, and am, well, better suited with my temperament to be an entrepreneur. But I would be a reader if I needed to, you know, if my finances were not doing well, I would just work on patience and be compassionate as best I could, and that's kind of my backup plan, I think. If my businesses didn't do well, then I would be a reader again. But I prefer to just make videos and be a writer and help people that kind of come into my life serendipitously, and that's my approach to how I like to help others. So thanks for listening.